Boma stepped out and stared at her new home, a wooden shack made from planks and old roofing sheets. A torn mosquito net hung from one window. A broken bench sat outside, surrounded by overgrown weeds. The air smelled of stale smoke, kerosene, and suffering. Then she saw him. A tall, bearded man wearing a faded black t-shirt and rubber slippers walked out from the side of the shack. He looked different. Not mad, not drunk, just tired. He had a small bag on his back and a calmness about him that didn't match the surroundings. "This is Bala," Isioma said. Bala nodded once, respectfully. Boma stared, speechless. Her mind raced. This couldn't be her husband. He looked like someone who had seen the inside of dumpsters. "You'll stay with him now," her stepmother continued. Boma turned to her father. "Daddy, please, don't do this." But her father didn't even look her in the eye. He turned around and climbed back into the keke. And they left. Just like that. A pregnant 18-year-old girl abandoned at the edge of the city in the arms of a stranger who lived in a shack. That night, Boma sat in the corner of the shack, her arms wrapped tightly around her knees. Bala said nothing. He offered her the thin mattress and laid a wrapper on the floor for himself. When she didn't move, he went outside, returning minutes later with a steaming cup of pap in a stainless steel cup. "You haven't eaten," he said quietly. She didn't answer. "I don't know what they told you about me," he added, placing the cup near her feet. "But I'm not here to harm you." She looked up. "Why would you agree to marry someone like me?" His eyes met hers, steady and unreadable. "Because I know what it means to be discarded." Silence. A long, heavy silence. She turned away and cried quietly into her palms. The days passed slowly, but Bala never raised his voice. He never touched her. He never insulted her. Every morning, he fetched water from the public tap for her. Every evening, he brought back a small loaf of bread or fruit from wherever he hustled. He even fixed the leaking part of the shack's roof one morning after rain had soaked her sleeping corner. She started to see things, like how he lined up his worn clothes neatly on a rope, how he prayed quietly every night, whispering things that sounded like regret, how he watched the stars like they were old friends. One evening, he saw her struggling to tie her wrapper around her growing belly. "Let me help," he said gently. She hesitated, then allowed him. His hands were careful, like someone who had carried broken things before. "Thank you," she whispered. "You're welcome, Boma." That was the first time he said her name, and something in her heart cracked. She started watching him. Why did a man with so little speak like someone who had read hundreds of books? Why did he seem calm while living in chaos? One day, she saw him scribbling something into a worn leather journal. "You write?" she asked. "A little," he replied, covering the page. "What were you before this?" He smiled faintly. A man who thought money could solve everything. His answer puzzled her, but she didn't press. He didn't ask her about the pregnancy, or Deo, or her past. He simply existed beside her. Quiet, steady, safe, and for the first time in years, Boma began to feel something that frightened her more than hunger or shame. She began to feel safe. The days melted into weeks. The railway shack, once a symbol of rejection, began to feel not like home, but like a safe pause in the chaos that had defined Boma's young life. It was small, poorly ventilated, and cracked in more than one place, but it didn't carry the weight of hatred. No one shouted at her here. No one slapped her or reminded her that she was an unwanted mistake. For the first time since her mother's death, she breathed. And Bala? He was an enigma wrapped in dust and kindness. Bala was always up before the sun. Boma would wake to the soft sound of water splashing in a bucket and the quiet hum of a hymn under his breath. He always made sure she had warm water to bathe, even if it meant he had to fetch it in the cold early hours. When her morning sickness hit hard, he mashed Paw Paw with honey and fed her slowly, silently, as she lay on the makeshift bed crying from weakness and shame. He never asked about the father of her baby. He never asked about her past. He simply existed beside her, like a rock in the middle of a storm. One late afternoon, they sat under the shade of a mango tree just behind the shack. Boma's swollen belly rose gently with each breath. She was peeling boiled groundnuts while Bala carved something quietly into a piece of wood with a blunt knife. "What are you making?" she asked. He turned the wood toward where it was a small, simple carving of a baby curled up in its mother's arms. Her breath caught in her throat. "It's beautiful," she whispered. He nodded, brushing shavings from his lap. "I wanted to give you something. Something real. Something lasting." Tears filled her eyes. "Why are you doing all this?" Bala looked at her, eyes gentle and steady. "Because no one deserves to be unloved," he said. And in that moment, Boma broke again, not from pain, but from the terrifying beauty of being treated like she mattered. The rains came that night, furious and loud, battering the thin roof with relentless force. Thunder cracked the sky, and Boma, who had always feared storms, woke up with a scream. Bala rushed to her side, torchlight in hand. "I'm here," he said softly, kneeling beside her. She was shaking. "I hate thunder," she whispered. "It reminds me of the night my mother died. The power went out. She couldn't breathe, and I couldn't help her." Bala didn't speak. He wrapped a blanket around her shoulders and sat beside her as the storm raged. "I should have done more," she sobbed. "I should have found money. I should have." He placed a firm, warm hand on hers. "Stop. You did what you could. You loved her. That was enough." And for the first time, she believed it. They sat in silence, listening till the storm died down. And when it passed, so did something Elsie weight she hadn't realized she was still carrying. The following morning, Balma woke up to find the shack empty. No firewood burning, no water bucket filled, no Bala. She called out, but there was no answer. His bag was gone. His sandals were missing. Panic gripped her. Had he finally gotten tired of her? Had he left like everyone else? Her hands trembled as she tried to eat, but the lump in her throat wouldn't let the food go down. Hours passed. The sun began to set. Still no Bala. She sat outside the shack, arms wrapped around her belly, whispering prayers. "God, please, not him too." Just then, she heard it. A deep horn in the distance. She turned toward the railway path. A black Prado SUV rolled slowly toward the shack. Her heart skipped. She stood, confused, shielding her eyes from the sun. The car stopped. The door opened, and Bala stepped out clean-shaven, dressed in a tailored navy blue suit, his shoes polished, his beard trimmed. Boma stumbled backward. "Bala?" she gasped. He walked toward her slowly. "I'm sorry," he said gently. "I had to go and come back as myself." What is this?" she stammered. "I wanted you to know me first. Not what I have. Not what I own. Just me." Tears welled in her eyes. "I don't understand." Took her hand and led her to the bench. "Let me tell you who I really am," he began. "My name is Bala Adigbite, son of Chief Adigbite. My family owns one of the largest real estate empires in Lagos. I was born into money, into luxury, but I lost myself in it. A few years ago, after my mother's death and a fallout with my father, I walked away. I wanted to understand life, not from behind tinted windows or security guards. I wanted to know what it meant to be human." He paused, watching her face. "I chose poverty. I chose to walk the streets, live small, serve the broken. I never planned to marry, but then I met you. Boma's mouth hung open, her heart racing. You knew this whole time? You pretended to be poor? I didn't pretend, he said softly. I became what most people avoid, because I wanted to give without expecting. I wanted to feel life. She stared at him, trying to connect the man who carried water in rubber slippers with the man in a designer suit before her. I wanted to be sure you saw me, he added, that your heart didn't choose me because of wealth. And you did. You chose me in a shack with nothing. Her legs gave way and she sat down slowly, overwhelmed. This is too much, she whispered. I don't deserve this. He knelt before her. No one deserves love, Boma. We give it, we fight for it, and I'm fighting for you. From his pocket, he brought out a small box plane, wooden, hand-carved. Inside was a simple silver band. No diamonds, no gold, he said, just truth. Will you give me the chance to raise your child with you, as your friend and husband? Tears streamed down her cheeks. She nodded, too choked to speak. And for the first time in a very long time, her yes wasn't born out of fear but of faith. The sky was bright that day, almost too bright as if it knew something divine was about to unfold. It had been 4 weeks since Bala revealed his true identity, and not a day had gone by without Boma pinching herself to be sure she wasn't dreaming. She now lived in a serene compound, far from the railway track, in a 3-bedroom bungalow with freshly painted walls, marble tiles, and quiet security guards who greeted her every morning with respect she'd never known. The fridge was full. The bed was soft. Her clothes were no longer worn and torn, but none of these things mattered as much as the peace in her heart. Bala hadn't just saved her. He had given her back something she thought she had lost forever, her worth. But there was one thing left to do. One chapter she needed to close. Boma stared at her reflection in the mirror that morning, her pregnant belly now round and full. She wore a long, flowing Ankara gown with butterfly sleeves and gold embroidery. Her hair was braided neatly into cornrows that framed her face. Her skin, once pale from stress, now glowed. I'm ready, she whispered to herself. Bala appeared behind her, dressed in a cream caftan with dark sunglasses. You don't have to do this, he said gently. I do, she replied, standing tall. Not for revenge, for closure. He nodded. Then let's go. The black Prado SUV moved smoothly through the dusty roads of her old neighborhood. Heads turned as it passed. Some women carrying buckets paused to whisper. Children chased the car with excitement. No one could recognize the graceful woman behind the tinted glass as the same girl they once mocked, pitied, or ignored. When they parked in front of her father's gate, Boma felt her heart race. The same rusted metal gate that used to close behind her like a prison door now stood before her as an old, powerless relic. A neighbor peeked through the fence, then another. Whispers began to float in the air like smoke. Is that not Boma? Jesus, see car. Who's that man beside her? Before anyone could knock, the gate creaked open. It was her father-older looking, thinner, eyes dim. He froze. His mouth fell open. Boma? He asked, barely above a whisper. She stepped forward, her steps graceful, deliberate. Good afternoon, Daddy, she said. Behind her, Bala stepped out of the SUV. Isioma rushed out moments later, her wrapper tied loosely over her chest, a cooking spoon still in her hand. Her eyes bulged at the sight of Bala in his fine clothes and polished shoes. Then she saw Boma's belly. Ah, Boma, she exclaimed. You're alive? You came back? I never died, Boma said calmly. Ah, my daughter, my sweet girl. We were only trying to get rid of me? Boma interrupted, her voice soft but firm. You threw me into the arms of a man you thought was homeless. You treated me like trash, and you didn't even ask once if I was okay. Her father shifted uncomfortably. It was the situation. We didn't have a choice. You had a choice, she said. tears forming but not falling. You just didn't choose me. Bala stepped forward now. He looked directly at her father. My name is Bala Adegbite, he said. The man you forced your daughter to marry without care or dignity. I wanted to introduce myself properly this time. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a slim envelope. Inside was a check. 20 million naira. Her father's eyes widened. What is this? He stammered. Payment, Bala said coldly, for the pain, the shame, the abandonment. Call it a thank you for not recognizing the treasure you had. This is the last money you'll ever receive connected to Boma. He handed the envelope to her father without blinking. Spend it however you like, but understand this. Boma is no longer your burden. She is her own blessing now. Her father's mouth opened, then closed. He looked at the check, then at Boma, as if seeing her for the first time. I didn't know, he muttered. I didn't know she would become this. You didn't care to know, Bala replied. Izioma, who had been silent the whole time, suddenly dropped to her knees. Please, Boma, forgive me. I was afraid. I didn't want your pregnancy to bring shame to this family. I made a mistake. Boma looked at her for a long time. I forgive you, she said softly. But forgiveness doesn't mean I'll forget, and it definitely doesn't mean I'll return. She turned to Bala. Let's go home. As they got back into the SUV, the neighbors gathered in little groups, whispering louder now. Did you see the car? She's married to a billionaire. I heard she built an orphanage already. I thought she died. She even greeted her father respectfully. May God bless her. But Boma didn't hear them. She leaned her head against Bala's shoulder as they drove off. And for the first time since her mother's death, she didn't feel like a child pretending to be strong. She felt like a woman who had survived.